Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtota Sita Shri Srimad Abhaya Charnar Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Gita Ekadasi Mosksada Ekadasi Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today is the advent of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is the day that the Supreme Personality of Godhead spoke the instructions, transcendental instructions of the Bhagavad Gita to his devotee Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, I wanted to read a little bit from about Gita Mahatmya. So, there are two famous Gita Mahatmyas. There's actually three that I know of. So, one is the Gita Mahatmya that Adi Shankaracharya composed. This is what Srila Prabhupada quotes in his introduction to Bhagavad Gita. So, for instance, the famous verse, Sarva Upanishado Gavo, Dhokta Gopala Nandanaha, Partha Vatso Sudhir Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. I'm missing one word, I forgot one word in that. That all the Upanishads are compared to a cow. And Partha, Arjuna is compared to a calf. And Krishna is the cowherd boy who is milking the essence of all the Upanishads and thus giving us that milk, which is the Bhagavad Gita, Gita Amritam. So just like milk is very nourishing, this Bhagavad Gita is extremely nourishing for one's spirit soul. So then there is a second. So this is famous. Adi Shankara's Gita Mahatmya is perhaps the most famous. Then there's a second one which is found in the Vaishnava Tantra Sara. And this, also known as Tantra Sara, was, according to Madhvacharya, was spoken by Lord Vishnu to Brahma. All the aspects of worship was initially taught to Brahma by Lord Vishnu through Tantra Sara, which is now not available to human beings. So Madhvacharya extracted relevant portions from this work and composed Tantra Sara Sangraha, bringing out its essence. So what is this Tantra Sara Sangraha? It contains what Tantra Sara had. You have the 8 great Vaishnava mantras, aspect of Avarana Puja, Kalasha Puja, various forms of Lord Vishnu, Yajna rituals, meditation, Vastu of temple construction, sculpture, and aspects related to the installation of icons. So icons refer to the different, for instance, different yantras, placing them around, or different forms of the Lord, or different icons such as what one can find is the Kiriti Mukha. For instance, you will find in many South Indian temples, you have this thing on top of the deity with a lion face on top of it. You might have seen. It's in Mayapur, they use it on top of Nrsimhadev sometimes. It's called Kiriti Mukha. That's what it's called. So these are all icons that are used in worship. And there are many things like this that you use in yajnas, you use in deity worships, all kinds of things are there. So this is described in Madhvacharya's Tantra Sara Sangraha and Tantra Sara Sangraha. And the Palashruti says that just reading itself will bestow all that we want. What to say when it is practiced? There is nothing that one cannot get when one practices Tantra Sara Sangraha with full knowledge. So, and then there is the third Gita Mahatmya, which is said to be from the Padma Purana. I'm not sure, but there is stories of each, the benefit of chanting each chapter. So there's some different stories that you will find for each chapter. So and so chanted like this, and they got relieved of this and that, and it's all found as like extensive. So I wanted to read from the Gita Mahatmya from the Tantra Sara, Vaishnaviya Tantra Sara or Tantra Sara. So it's a long glorification. Let's see. Okay. So why are we reading this? Because we know that Bhagavad Gita can help us cross the ocean of material existence. The instructions of Krishna can deliver us from the cycle of birth and death, bestow love of Godhead, and award us the highest perfection. Yet, when we are going over this Gita Mahatmya, just to really understand how great it is, because you'll see what kinds of things the Gita can bestow. And of course, the highest is to attain love of God. But I'm also reading this because it throws light on the importance of chanting prayers, chanting verses, and meditating upon the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For instance, one of the verses that says here, you'll see that, it says that even if one remembers a verse of Bhagavad Gita at the time of death, one goes back to Godhead. It's not just that one has to directly remember of Krishna. Krishna's words and Krishna is not different. So, even if one remembers a verse of Bhagavad Gita, any verse that one remembers of Bhagavad Gita at the time of death, one goes back to Godhead. So these kind of things, you get revealed when you read these. Of course, there's a lot of material benefits also. So, okay, text 1, the sage said, O Suta, please tell us of the glories of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as expressed long ago at Narayana Kshetra by the great sage Srila Vyasadeva. Suta Goswami said, O Venerable One, your request is most auspicious. Indeed, who can describe the transcendental glories of Sri Gita, the most hidden of all treasures? Certainly, Lord Sri Krishna is in full knowledge of those glories, and so Arjuna, the son of Kunti, knows of them, and Vyasadeva, Shukadev, Yajnavalkya, and the saintly king Janaka too. Others too, who have heard but a little of the glories of Sri Gita, are engaged in singing them. And so I shall now speak of the glories of Sri Gita as I had heard them from Vyasadeva. Then the famous verse, Sarvopanishado Gava, Dogda Gopalanandana, Partha Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta, Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. Okay, Bhokta, that was the word I was missing. All the Upanishads are personified as the cow, and Sri Krishna is the milker of the cow. Arjuna is the calf, the nectar of the Gita is the milk, and the fortunate devotees are the enjoyers of that milk. I first offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, who accepted the position of the chariot driver of Arjuna just to distribute this nectar of the Gita for the benefit of the three worlds. A person desiring to cross over the treacherous ocean of material suffering can do so very easily by taking refuge in the boat of the Bhagavad Gita. A foolish person who desires liberation by constant yoga practice without hearing the wisdom of the Gita is considered to be childish. Now, there's a couple of verses so it says, persons who day and night hear and sing the Gita are never to be taken as mere human beings. Without doubt, they are as good as gods in this world. To enlighten Arjuna with the wisdom of the Gita, Lord Krishna Chandra has revealed the supremacy of devotion either in this world or in the transcendental plane. Thus, the wisdom of the Gita is a ladder of 18 chapters, ascending which one rises above sense enjoyment and liberation, bhukti mukti, and gradually attains purification of the heart and qualification of loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Bathing in the pure waters of the Gita, the devotees are liberated from the contamination of the material world. However, persons lacking faith in the Lord may attempt this, but in vain, like an elephant's bathing. So this is a very important verse to understand, that devotees are liberated from the contamination of the material world by bathing their intelligence in the waters of the Gita. Now, however, persons who lack faith may attempt this, but they don't get the benefit. And Srila Prabhupada makes this point repeatedly in the Bhagavad Gita, that one has to approach the Bhagavad Gita with some faith. If one does not approach the Bhagavad Gita with faith, then none of this happens. And this also forms the basis of understanding the rest of the glorification of this. There's several verses ahead, and some of these you will find are quite amazing, really amazing benedictions that are offered to one who studies Bhagavad Gita. But the benefit the proportion of benefit that one gets depends on the proportion of faith that one is willing to place in the Bhagavad Gita. And so that's a very important point to understand. So when we approach Bhagavad Gita, and another reason why I wanted to read this is because not only do we study Bhagavad Gita, we have access to it by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, but we also distribute it every single day. And you'll see here, there's one of the benedictions here is of a person who just touches the Bhagavad Gita. It's found there, further down. Okay, a person who knows nothing of learning and teaching the Gita fails in the duty of a human being. The English is so bad. So if one doesn't know anything of the Gita, then whatever he learns, whatever teaching, he fails in the duty of a human being. Therefore, there is none more fallen than he who is ignorant of the teachings of the Gita. Shame on his human birth, his learning, his dignity, and his entire family. There is none more fallen than he who is ignorant of the meaning of the Gita. Shame on his bodily beauty, his character, his wealth, and his home. Now, why do we read all this? It's not simply to condemn those, we just want to start hating on other people. But the point is, as conditioned souls who are trying to advance in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we are attracted to things outside. We are attracted to for instance, bodily beauty of people who are not devotees. We are attracted to maybe character of those who are not devotees. We are attracted to the wealth of those who are non-devotees. But, these kind of verses can help us understand, well, the Shastra condemns these people. This is shame because they don't know Bhagavad Gita. So we should not become bewildered by such material opulence. From Krishna's perspective, from the perspective of Shastra, these are all condemnable. There is none more fallen than he who is ignorant of the scripture, Bhagavad Gita. Shame on his undertakings, his reputation, his worship, his charity, his honor. Even his charity is condemned here. A person who does not care for the Gita scripture is to be known as a failure in all respects. Shame on his teacher, his vows, his faith, his austerity, and his renown. It's just shame on practically everything that they can think of the person. There is none more fallen than he who does not study the purport of the Gita. And that knowledge which is not glorified in the Gita should be known as demoniac, futile, unvirtuous, and rejected by the Vedas and the Upanishads. Again, here it's also important to understand that one has to understand the purport of the Bhagavad Gita. And the purport of all these scriptures are revealed to us by the Acharyas. And from this you can understand Srila Prabhupada's statement. Prabhupada said it's more important, his purports are more important than the translations. Prabhupada made a statement like this. That it's more important that his disciples read the purport. Sometimes devotees, they just like to read translations. Of course, if one is just trying to learn something, it's okay. But as a part of study, one must read the purports. Otherwise, the knowledge, and this is also relevant because Hindus, they like to chant Bhagavad Gita. They just like to chant, verses after verses after verses. But they don't like to they don't even like to hear the meaning. What to speak of learning the purport of the meaning? So here it is said that no one is more fallen than one who doesn't study the purport of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Text 19. Therefore the Gita, Holy Gita, is universally respected as the compilation of the essence of all scriptures and the source of all wisdom. You see, because the Gita is spoken by the Supreme Lord himself and is found in the Mahabharata, it is the most accessible of all spiritual knowledge that is found in the Vedas. Completely accessible. Even more than the Srimad Bhagavatam. Even more than of course, way more than Chaitanya Charitamrita that we have. And for this reason, the Gita has a lot of this, like where you will find like this Gita Mahatmya. So for instance, like I said in Padma Purana, there is, I think it's Padma Purana, but there is, entire stories for each chapter. Oh, this benefit. You know what? You know the benefit? I will tell you the benefit of this chapter now. And then there's a big story that follows that. And then, such and such is the benefit of one who reads that. And then it will come. So, why is this found? Because the Gita, and you will find that practically all throughout, all the followers of Sanatana Dharma, all the followers of Vedic culture, they accept the Bhagavad Gita. And to encourage them to understand the purport of Bhagavad Gita so that they may come to the platform of pure devotional service, a lot of these things are found. Yes, Vishnu, and you will see that in the Gita Mahatmya, the emphasis is that this helps one go back home, back to Godhead. It helps one achieve devotional service. That repeated emphasis is fine. Whereas, for instance, in the Palashruti of things like, say, Vishnu Sahasranam, that is mentioned, but so many other things are mentioned. And Vishnu Sahasranam is even more basic because you just chant the holy names of Vishnu. You're not even, people who are on that platform, they're so fallen that to get them to understand the meaning of instructions is quite like, is actually a level higher than what they're able to come to right now. So let them chant the holy name. Now, the Bhagavad Gita, on the other hand, brings people to the platform of knowledge. Krishna is giving, and Krishna himself is giving that knowledge, and therefore it is a ladder. Therefore, you will see that Krishna is explaining all these different types of yoga, karma, this, that. So it helps people who are stuck with all these misconceptions to come out of these misconceptions and establish bhakti yoga, devotional service as supreme. And so, the Bhagavad Gita Of course, the Bhagavatam also, you can say, is compilation of the essence of all scriptures and the source of all wisdom. But Bhagavatam is, who's the Bhagavatam for? According to the Bhagavatam, who's the Bhagavatam for? Paramahamsas. It is for the Paramahamsas. The Bhagavatam is for Paramahamsas. It's actually not for the ordinary man. Yet, it is available by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that, what is that verse? Kalau nashta drishamesha, Purana arko dunoditaha. How does it begin? Krishne sudhamopagate dharma jnanadi bisaha kalau nashta drishamesha, Purana arko dunoditaha. That this Srimad Bhagavatam has appeared after the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who returned to his abode, like the sun that arises and dispels darkness in this world. So Srimad Bhagavatam is there. Yet, we understand, even through Srila Prabhupada, that Bhagavad Gita is preliminary study. That from Bhagavad Gita, even devotees, we are recommended as we are coming into Krishna consciousness, first read Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu, then go to Bhagavatam. So this Bhagavad Gita is universally available for everyone, for all classes of people. And to encourage them to read the Bhagavad Gita, to come closer to Bhagavad Gita, there are so many benefits that are offered. You will see less stating of such benefits in scripture for Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, the Bhagavatam can bestow the same benefits. And Bhagavatam bestows, the fruit of love of God. Yet in the Bhagavatam, the emphasis is more on that one gets devotional service. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you have nothing but that. You have nothing but that. You will only approach Chaitanya Charitamrita if you want to achieve love of God. Otherwise, the Chaitanya Charitamrita does not encourage you on anything else. So this is the ladder of scriptures that are given to us by the Acharyas. You have Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, text 20. One who studies the Gita on holy festival days of the advent of the Supreme Lord and on holy fasting days, especially Ekadasi, such a person, whether awake or asleep, moving or still, is never defeated by enemies. Okay, maybe I'll try to read the Sanskrit. Shalagrama shilayam va devagare shivalaye tirte nadyam patet gitam Saubhagyam labate dhruvam. One who sings the Gita before the Shalagram Shila deity, or in a temple of the Supreme Lord, or in a temple of Lord Shiva, at a holy place of pilgrimage, or on the bank of a holy river, certainly such a person attains to all good fortune. Devaki Nandana Krishno Gita Patena Tushyati Yatana Vedyair Danena Yajnatirtha Vrtadibihi. Neither the singing of the Vedas nor the performance of charity, sacrifice, pilgrimage, or vows can bring such satisfaction to Krishna, the son of Devaki, as does the singing of the Gita. So just singing, just chanting the Bhagavad Gita gives pleasure to Krishna. This is another thing. It's not just we're just chanting the Bhagavad Gita just to memorize verses. Chanting of the Bhagavad Gita gives pleasure to Krishna. It gives him pleasure. And therefore you see here, you can sing in front of Shalagram Shila, you can chant it in front. And traditionally, Vaishnavas would do these things. Non-Vaishnavas would also do it, considering these benefits. And, okay, why does it matter to us? Because as conditioned souls, when we do these things, we also need good fortune. We also need to give pleasure to Krishna. But a devotee, when he chants these things, he chants it with the intention that he wants to achieve devotional service. And it is so greatly helpful. Activities like this can help improve one's chanting, can help improve one's attraction to the lotus feet of the spiritual master, to worshipping the Supreme Lord, to meditating upon the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Because this is all Krishna Katha, this is all Krishna consciousness. Gita Dita cha yenapi Bhakti bhavena chetasa Veda Shastra Puranani Tena Dhitani Sarvashaha. The study of the Vedas and Puranas, verily the study of all the scriptures is fulfilled in all respects by one who studies the Gita with devotion. Yoga sthane siddha pite Shilagre tat subhashucha Yajnecha Vishnu bhaktagre patan siddhim param labhet. The highest perfection of life is attained by one who sings the Gita at a place of yoga meditation, at a place of worship, before the Shalagram Shila, in the association of saintly persons, during a sacrifice, and before a devotee of Vishnu. So, another aspect that you will find traditionally when people take to prayers is that they would like to do it as far as possible. They would many times they would try to do it in groups. They would schedule, and nowadays people do it over the phone also. And again, the reason for doing that is because such things are encouraged in Shastra. It's not just that one is having some company to do such a thing, but such things are encouraged in Shastra. And there are more benefits in doing so. Also, by doing so, one is encouraged to do it regularly as a practice. And such kind of practices you will find traditionally Vaishnavas do these things. Even though they may have their regular sadhana as we are doing, we may have a regular prayers, it is very customary of both men and women to choose specific prayers and chant them, understanding the benefit of doing so. Because we all have desires, spiritual desires, we have material problems that we need to solve, and for everything we require, what do we require? Prayer is what we need to do. You require Krishna's mercy. So get it in every shape and form that one can get it. And these are all traditional ways that people have got the mercy of Krishna by doing so. These are all ways in which the spirit soul exhibits his eagerness to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gita patancha sarvanam yah karoti dine dine kratavo vajimedhadhyaha kritastena sadakshinaha. One who daily hears and sings the Gita is to be considered as having accomplished the performance of all sacrifices, such as the Ashwamedha and others, including the receiving of the sacrificial gifts. So what does one gain by doing the Ashwamedha sacrifices and doing all these things? What is the destination of a person who does such things? Swarga, going to the heavenly planets. Specifically, one attains Indra Loka. One attains the planet of Indra by the Ashwamedha sacrifices. Okay, what has that got to do with us? Well, the point is that it's so beneficial that one even attains the heaven. Any person just by chanting this daily can attain the heavenly planets. Of course, a devotee is not desirous. We are not desirous of going to the heavenly planets. But here, just the potency of chanting the Bhagavad Gita is to be reflected upon. Yashrunoti cha Gita artham kirtayatyevat yah param shravecha parartham shraveyetcha parartham vai saprayati parampadam. One who attentively hears and sings the glories of the purport of the Gita, or reiterates it to others, attains the supreme destination. Gitayah pushtakam shuddham yorpatyeva sadarat vidina bhakti bhavena tasya bharya priya bhavet. One who with respect and devotion and according to scriptural directives makes a gift of this holy book, the Gita, such a person's wife will be devoted. That is a very wonderful thing. That it's not only that one gets benefit, if one gifts it, maybe one's wife will become devoted. So these are things that are said in Shastra. Then people have problems with their wives. We can gift Bhagavad Gita and pray for that. And then you may have the solution is this. Everything is solution are found in Shastra. So, So what if the wife of this holy book? So from this you can also understand that just like we have the glories of gifting Srimad Bhagavatam on Bhadra Purnima, you have glories of gifting Bhagavad Gita also. So it's a highly beneficial thing to engage people in. Again, like I said, faith is an aspect in being able to derive such benefits. Yasha saubhagyam arogyam labhate natra samshayah dati Daitanam priyo bhutva paramam sukham ashnute. And without a doubt, he shall enjoy fame, fortune and good health. He shall enjoy the affection of those dear to him, and he shall know the highest happiness. Abhicharodbhavam dukkham varasapagatan chayat Nopasarpati tatraiva yatra gitarchanam grihe. The sorrow caused by a terrible curse or black rites can never enter the home where the Gita is worshipped. You may think that this is not very relevant, but just recently, as in the news, it came that a gang member in Haiti, who's a Christian, slaughtered 200 people who were voodoo practitioners, because his Christian priest informed him that his son was sick, and the Christian priest informed him that it was because the voodoo practitioners in Haiti cursed his son or something. So this guy decided to take his gang members and kill 200 people just now. It just happened a few days ago. These are real things that people are worried about. If we are not worried about it, then that's good. We are fortunate. But also, sometimes you might be in places where there are ghosts and things like that. Again, for somebody who chants Hare Krishna, everything is automatically achieved. But it depends on the proportion of how pure one's chanting is. And that is where these kind of prayers come into significance for us. That by these prayers, we can seek the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that mercy helps us in two ways. It helps us overcome our problems, achieve our desires, spiritual desires, hopefully. A devotee is hopefully desiring spiritual things and ultimately desires love of God. And also, such prayer can help us develop more faith, attention, and reverence for chanting the holy name of the Lord and reading the Bhagavad Gita and following the instructions of the spiritual master. Why? Because all of this comes from them. This is the great gift that has been given to us. Trapatrayod bhava pida naiva vyadhir bhavet kochit na shapo naiva papancha durgatir narakam nacha. In that house, there is never the suffering of the threefold miseries, nor fear of any illness, curse, sin, misfortune, or hellish existence. Vishapotaka dayo dehe na bhadayant Vishpotaka dayo dehe na bhadante kadachana labet Krishna pade dasyam bhaktin chavyabhicharinim. In that house, no one is ever afflicted with infectious diseases, and the residents attain undeviating devotion in service to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. So, infectious diseases also can be overcome by chanting of Bhagavad Gita. Jayete satatam sakyam sarva jiva ganai saha prarabdham bunjato vapi gita bhyasa ratasya cha. A person devoted to singing the Gita acquires a friendly disposition to all living beings despite the desirable or undesirable reactions of his previous actions. So if one is worried about one's nature, I'm short-tempered, Prabhu, I'm arrogant, I'm adamant, or I'm this, I'm that, and I'm struggling to relate properly with other living entities, I'm struggling to relate properly with other devotees, I'm having problems, chant Bhagavad Gita. It's said here that one can overcome such kind of problems by studying Bhagavad Gita. So muktasya sukhi loke karmana nopalipyate mahapapati papani gita dhyayi karoti chet na kinchit sprishate yas tasya nalini dalam ambhasa. He is liberated and he is happy. He is never implicated by his actions, even if perchance. Is that one word? That is a word. Oh. That person, what does it mean? By chance. Oh wow, okay. Perchance that person who studies the Gita commits terrible sin, he is as unaffected as the lotus leaf that remains untouched by even a drop of water. So in Gita, Krishna describes this. Padma patra ivambasa. He says, now, those kind of persons that Krishna is describing in Bhagavad Gita, such as the Sthitadhi Muni, we can become by studying Bhagavad Gita every day. And this can be done in multiple ways. One can do this, as it said later, you can chant verses, you can read a couple of pages, meditate upon the meanings of the verses, etc., etc. Okay, I'll just start going through the English again. I thought I'd do the Sanskrit faster. Okay, whether the inauspiciousness of wrong action or malevolent speech, of eating unacceptable food or touching the untouchable, or sin knowingly or unknowingly contracted through the senses in the course of daily activities, all evils are immediately dispelled by singing the Gita with devotion. One sincerely devoted to singing the Gita is never implicated despite accepting food in all places or gifts in all kinds of circumstances. This is not a green light to go and eat anything and everything and go anywhere and everywhere and eat whatever. It basically refers to someone who might out of circumstances, might end up eating something that he shouldn't have ate, etc., etc. And also it protects one when out of great hunger one may end up eating something that he shouldn't have eaten just to kind of maintain oneself. Then chant Bhagavad Gita and you're protected by Krishna. One who takes the unlawful possession of the entire earth full of jewels, he too will be innocent by singing the Gita, but his heart will be as clear as crystal. Oh my God, such bad English. A person whose heart is ever joyfully absorbed in the Gita is to be considered fully accomplished in sacrifices, always in prayer, perfect in his actions, and truly learned. All are benefited simply by seeing him. He is glorious, he is a yogi, and he is wise. He is a knower of sacrifice, he is engaged in sacrifice, and he is a knower of the purport of all the Vedas. All the holy places in this world, such as Prayag and all others, are present wherever the holy book of the Gita is present and sung constantly. For one who constantly studies the Gita, the demigod sages and yogis all preside as guardians in the body, even at the time of death. Wherever the Gita is sung, the gracious cowherd boy Sri Krishna swiftly appears as a friend, accompanied by his associates Narada, Dhruva, and others. Wherever the Gita scripture is discussed, studied, and taught, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna comes with great joy, accompanied by Srimati Radharani. So, Krishna appears by chanting of the Bhagavad Gita along with Srimati Radharani. You might think that Radharani has nothing to do with the Bhagavad Gita, but that is not the case. Because the Bhagavad Gita espouses pure devotion, which ultimately is what is found in Srimad Bhagavatam and is described in very eloquent language by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Supreme Personality of Godhead says, O Partha, the Gita is my heart, the Gita is my supreme essence, and the Gita is the most powerful, imperishable knowledge of me. The Gita is my supreme place, the Gita is my supreme plane, I guess abode, sthanam. The Gita is my most hidden treasure, and the Gita is my supreme teacher. Gita me paramo guruhu. I am present within the Gita is my supreme abode. I maintain the three worlds by the eternal wisdom of the Gita. The Gita is my transcendental wisdom, my own self, conveyed by every letter and comprised of eternally ineffable verses. O Pandava, I shall tell you the holy names of the Gita. By singing these names, one is immediately absolved of all sins. Hear now these confidential names from me. So this is the names of Gita. Let's hear them. Ganga, Gita, Savitri, Sita, Satya, Pativriti, Brahmavali, Brahmavidya, Trisandhya, Muktagehini, Ardhamatra, Chidananda, Bhavagni, Bhrantinashini, Vedatrayi, Parananda, and Tattvartha Jnana Manjari. One who with unflickering mind regularly chants these confidential holy names achieves perfection in divine knowledge and finally reaches the supreme destination. One who is unable to sing the entire Gita, half of it should be sung. Then without doubt, the piety gained by making a gift of cows will be attained. So if one chants half of the Gita, you get the piety gained by making a gift of the cows. Gift of cows. One will achieve the fruit of the Soma sacrifice by singing 1/3 of the Gita, and the result of bathing in the Ganges is achieved by chanting 1/6 of it. One who unfailingly sings 2 of its chapters every day will surely attain residence in the abode of Lord Indra for 1 millennium. So 1 millennium. Kalpam. So that basically refers to 1 day of Lord Brahma. One who sings with devotion, one chapter daily will be recognized as an associate of Lord Shiva, and he will attain residence in the abode of Lord Shiva for immeasurable time. A person who daily sings one half or only 1/4 of a chapter will achieve residence in the abode of the sun for the time of 100 manus. A person who faithfully sings 10, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2 verses, one or only half a verse of the Gita will attain residence on the moon for 10,000 years. So this is referring to daily. Now, what does this mean? It is just to reflect upon. Now, why is this even mentioned here? It's not to encourage us to become, materialistic. But the point is, generally to achieve this, to achieve residence on the moon for 10,000 years. Can anybody think of something in this regard that we've read in Srila Prabhupada's books? I'll give you a hint. It's in Bhagavad Gita.
Living at the right time.
Exactly. Where is that depicted? Yeah, well, no, the picture? Have you seen it? Yeah, the yogi. The yogi. Which book is that in front of? Easy Journey to Other Planets. Right. So it's the yogi in front of the Easy Journey to Other Planets. You see that yogi, his soul splitting coming out from on top of his skull and, heading straight to the moon. They had to undergo so much penance and leave at the right time and all this kind of like great yogic practices just to attain the planet, the moon planet. And here, if one chants half a verse of Gita every day, he attains the moon planet. So that is the comparison. It is the comparison of what you gain, of how great this is. So how do you earn something great? Something's very nice, some tool or implement. If it allows you to do something that takes you 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours and you can do it in 5 minutes, then such a machine or tool is like glorified. Like, wow, this is amazing. It's such an amazing thing. It's so advanced. It allows us to do these things. Previously, if you had to do math and calculation and all that, now you have a computer and it calculates all these advanced formulas, everything just, immediately. So people glorify this thing. So similarly, the Bhagavad Gita, it bestows such kind of benefit, and just to emphasize its greatness. One who at the time of leaving the body remembers half the Gita, 1/4 of the Gita, 1 chapter or only 1 verse of the Gita, he reaches the supreme destination. So if you chant Bhagavad Gita, or at least you chant 1 verse every day, then there is a possibility that at the time of death you might remember that verse. And then you go back to God. By singing or hearing the purport of the Gita at the time of death, even a greatly sinful person qualifies for liberation. Therefore, traditionally also, for multiple reasons, for the benefits of those who have assembled, also at a funeral, Bhagavad Gita is chanted. At a funeral, Bhagavad Gita is a very, very common thing. That Bhagavad Gita is, now they just sing it. You're supposed to speak the meaning and speak about all that, but don't do all that. So one who is touching the holy book of the Gita at the time of leaving the body will attain to Vaikuntha and joyfully reside in the association of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. So again, this is also a reason why devotees do all these things. They place tulasi leaf, they keep the Bhagavad Gita, on the person's deathbed. So we also should know. So somebody, who's near and dear to us or nearby, and we realize they're about to pass, we have Bhagavad Gita. By Prabhupada's mercy, we have Bhagavad Gita in our house. Bring it right next to the bed. Let them touch it. They might go back. According to this, they'll go back home, back to Godhead. So this is all part of Vedic culture. Where people who live without this, they live like animals. We have this great benefit and we can take advantage of these things. Therefore, we reflect on these kind of things. One whose concentration is intent on just, I don't know what that means. I guess his concentration is perfected or focused on just 1 chapter of the Gita will attain a human birth after death. Then again, studying the Gita, he achieves the ultimate liberation. One who utters the word Gita at the time of death attains his life fulfillment. All actions performed along with the singing of the Gita become purified and successful. So that's another thing that many times you will find that when people are doing yajnas, you will see this very often, that before yajnas, different verses, different things are chanted in order to allow those yajnas or sacrifices or pujas to become perfect. So householders, for instance, Vaishnava householders have to perform different samskaras. And all those samskaras, they have to attain the fruit of performing them. The perfection has to be attained. For instance, in Garbhadan samskara, one wants to attract a saintly soul to one's household. So, in such actions, when one chants the Gita, for instance, one achieves perfection. This is also part of tradition, it's also part of culture. So these kinds of things are there, and it's helpful for us devotees to learn about these things, so that we can consider how we may incorporate these things into our lives. A person who sings the Gita during the performance of can you help me with that? Obsequial? Does that just means funeral sacrifices? Anybody's got a phone? Pull it up. Maybe it refers to Antyeshti. What are they called? Funeral rites, okay. Funeral ceremony satisfies his forefathers who, being liberated from hellish existence, ascends to heaven. Ascend to heaven. But satisfied by the offerings accompanied by the singing of the Gita, the ancestors offer their descendant their blessings and ascend to the heavenly plane known as Pitraloka. A person who makes a gift of a book of the Gita with a yak tail whisk chamara achieves success in all his endeavors that day. One who makes a gift of a book of the Gita, one who makes a gift of the Gita along with a presentation of gold to a learned Brahmana never takes birth in the material world again. One who makes a gift of 100 copies of the Gita attains the plane of the absolute, wherefrom rebirth practically never occurs. So you can understand that all the Shastra Dan and all this, it's not bogus. It's like there's a Shastric reference to all these things, and therefore it's very glorious. This Gita Dan and all this, which is being done in this month, a lot of people are doing it, but it should go to someone. It shouldn't just be numbers. So that sometimes happens, but it should actually go to some individual. It should be a charity, means you have to go to some individual. By the potency of making a gift of the Gita, one attains residence in the abode of Lord Vishnu for 7 millenniums and joyfully associates with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. One who attentively hears the purport of the Gita and makes a gift of that book to a Brahmana, he brings satisfaction to the Supreme Lord, who blesses him with the fulfillment of all his aspirations. A person who neither sings nor hears the nectarian Gita is like one who has nectar in his hand, yet leaves it aside to drink poison. So let's not be those kind of people, at least. We have the Bhagavad Gita, but we don't read it, we don't chant it, we don't associate with that great scripture. We are like one who has nectar in his hand, leaves it aside to drink poison. When persons suffering in this world of death discover the wisdom of the Gita and drink the nectar of the Gita, they take refuge in devotion to the Supreme Lord and become truly happy. Many saintly kings such as King Janaka and others took shelter in the wisdom of the Gita and, becoming purified in all sins, achieved the supreme destination. Neither high nor low birth qualifies or disqualifies a faithful person in the singing of the Gita. Since of all kinds of knowledge, the Gita is the embodiment of Brahman and equal to all. So anybody can chant. This is another great benediction of the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't matter where one comes from, who one is, one can access the Bhagavad Gita. A person who out of egoism and pride blasphemes the Gita will have to reside in terrible hell up to the time of the universal annihilation. That foolish person who deluded by egoism discards the purport of the Gita must remain boiling in oil in the hell known as Kumbhipaka until the annihilation at the end of the millennium. One who makes much of speaking about the purport of the Gita yet never properly hears about it repeatedly takes birth as a hog. This is again warning for those who speak about Bhagavad Gita, but when it says never properly hears, it means one who doesn't hear and follow. That's what it means. So such a person who's just, for instance, who is a professional reciter, who tries to use the Bhagavad Gita to gain money, or who speaks about the purport of the Bhagavad Gita, misinterpreting it, etc., for one's own personal benefit, they achieve a terrible destination. A person who obtains a book of the Gita by theft is unsuccessful in all his endeavors. Even his attempt to sing the Gita will be in vain. One who hearing the Gita does not experience spiritual joy, his life is fruitless, like the labor of one deluded. To please this, so this is also one thing, is that we should never become averse to hearing the Bhagavad Gita. It's not like, sometimes I've seen devotees, you're giving a Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu, you speak on Bhagavad Gita, that's all you want to speak about. There's nothing else, you speak some pastime, something about Krishna, about Bhagavad Gita. I don't want to hear Bhagavad Gita. I've actually heard this from devotees. And so one who hearing the Gita does not experience spiritual joy, his life is fruitless. The labor of one deluded. So he might be a devotee, but all his practice of Krishna consciousness becomes fruitless. Because means it doesn't yield the fruit that it's supposed to yield. To please the Supreme Lord, after hearing the Gita, one should offer gold, food, and silken cloth to a Vaishnava Brahmana. To satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari, one must worship the speaker of the Gita with devotion, offer him cloth and many worshipful presentations. Sutta Goswami said, these eternal glories of the Gita are sung by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna himself. One who sings the glories of the Gita on completion of singing the Gita can partake of the fruits of the Gita as mentioned herein. The attempt to sing the Gita is but fruitless labor for a person who neglects to conclude with the singing of the glories of the Gita. One who with faith in his heart hears or sings the Gita, complete with the glories of the Gita, reaches the supreme destination. One who with faith hears this meaningful Gita, song divine, and hears the conclusion of the glories of the Gita shall reap the fruits of virtue in this world, and his life will be filled with joy. Thus is completed the glories of Sri Gita from Sri Vaishnaviya Tantra Sara. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ali Krishna Guru.
Could you go back to verse 69 real quick? It's kind of a question about that one.
Oops. Yeah. 68 or 69.
Yeah, so attains residence in the abode of Lord Vishnu for 7 millenniums and joyfully associates with the Supreme Lord. So it also says, right, once you go back to spiritual world, you don't come back to the material world. So any explanation of that?
I'm not sure. It could refer to, it doesn't say that after 7 millenniums he'll leave Lord Vishnu. It just says that he will attain his association for 7 millenniums and joyfully associates with the Supreme Lord. It could refer to Shweta Dvipa within this material world. And then from there ascends even further to Vaikuntha. That is my philosophical speculation. But frank answer is, I don't know. Yeah.
One of the last verses was saying that this has to be chanted after one speaks on the Gita. I was wondering what's...
Yeah, it refers to primarily for getting all the fruits and things like that. That if one is intending to, if one intends to gain all the fruits, yeah, here it is. Shall reap the fruits of virtue of this world, and his life will be filled with joy and things like that. So, one who sings the glories of the completion can partake the fruits of the Gita as mentioned herein. So, yeah. Generally, Palashruti is sung, and this is what it means. Is generally, if you see, for instance, how Vishnu Sahasranam is sung, you have dhyanam, you have meditation on the verse on the Vishnu Sahasranam before the nature of Vishnu Sahasranam and things like that, and then afterwards you have Palashruti. So for chanting Bhagavad Gita, those who chant, they chant the entire Gita, for instance, there is also Gita Dhyanam, and then there is Palashruti. And it doesn't mean that only this Palashruti has to be sung. For instance, Adi Shankara's Gita Mahatmya has also Palashruti, also describes the fruits. So that's very short. It's just a few, I think it's 8, 9 verses total. One can chant that also. But this is a custom that people do. It's a chant. It is generally only done for when one is chanting the full Gita. Then one does Dhyanam and Palashruti. You find even Srimad Bhagavatam, just Palashruti, the end of Bhagavatam speaks about the glories of reciting Srimad. It's found in all scriptures. And then there is a little meditation before the Bhagavatam begins. Chaitanya Charitamrita also, you have those first verses. It's all complete meditation on the entire essence of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's in the first prayers that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami offers. And one can say that Shikshashtakam is the Palashruti of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because the Shikshashtakam is the essence of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you mentioned that like Bhagavad Gita, you'll find more glories of it in Shastra than any other scripture, and how like we should also similarly give more importance in some ways to it, especially as like a prerequisite study to Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So how do we, how does that support the distribution of like Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita to the people that don't have any knowledge of Bhagavad Gita?
I mean, we emphasize, especially when they become devotees, even if they got a Bhagavatam set in the first, it's like, Srila Prabhupada was asked this question, Srila Prabhupada said it's like a transcendental fruit. You can bite it in any part, and still the same sweetness is there. Yet, for instance, if someone's got one volume of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one may read it, and one does, with faith, when one reads that, one gets the same benefit. One comes to the lotus feet of Krishna, as we have seen many cases and instances of devotees doing like that. But eventually, when one wants to study, one has to go through first Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. When we are emphasizing Bhagavad Gita, it is just to understand that the principles of Bhagavad Gita are very, very relevant to one who is on the who's still conditioned by material desires. It is relevant to the perfected souls also. Yet, the Bhagavad Gita, because it is presented in a manner that is accessible to all types of conditioned souls, and as the essence is further and further condensed and refined in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, the qualification becomes more and more that one has to be more and more desirous of attaining pure devotional service in order to be able to appreciate those scriptures. So, I personally don't see a contradiction, because there is no contradiction, because it's the same substance. And by the mercy of our acharyas, because of Srila Prabhupada's purports, because of the Bhaktivedanta purports specifically, just like Srila Prabhupada makes the 10th canto, it's stated all over the 10th canto, you're not supposed to approach directly, but Prabhupada made the 10th canto available to us in the form of the Krishna book. So this is where the purport of our acharyas makes such a big difference. The text itself could be inaccessible, but the purport of our acharyas make it accessible. That Srila Prabhupada makes those purports in a manner, he gives those purports to us in a manner that we can access it, even anybody approaching any part of these books. So, it's better if one can, when distributing the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, also have a Bhagavad Gita given. If it's possible, that's the best thing, no doubt. But even if they got these books, when they ask, okay, what should I start? They're starting to practice, because we say, okay, read Bhagavad Gita first, Does that answer your question? Am I addressing that? Yeah. Okay. Yes?
Let's go to 78. I just kind of didn't catch it. The person who obtains the book of Gita by theft is unsuccessful in all his endeavors, and even his attempt to sing the Gita will be in vain. Prabhu, could you also just briefly explain the difference between Shruti and Smriti, and what is
what about this? What's the problem with this?
No, I just didn't catch that. I wanted to see that again.
Oh, you just wanted to see it,
Yeah,
okay.
This is
Yes, to
unrelated.
encourage. It's to encourage devotees also to not steal other copies of other devotees' Gita. You know, 'cause you like some devotee has a fancy version of the Gita and you steal it. I've seen it happen. You know, so, huh? Yeah. So.
Happened to Prabhupada too, apparently.
So, anyways, again, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if he wants, he can change this rules. He's being seated in the heart of a devotee, and there are all kinds of amazing stories. And this does not refer to someone who found the Gita, even though they didn't buy it. There's so many people who found the Bhagavad Gita, and then ended up reading it. They didn't necessarily steal it. But yeah.
So I guess beg, borrow, or steal the mercy doesn't apply in this one. Beg, borrow, or steal the
Intention matters a lot. Intention matters a lot. Because you can't, the point is you don't want to, at the same time one shouldn't offend either. See, beg, borrow, or steal, get the mercy. But still, if one steals from the spiritual master, then it's really messed up. Beg, borrow, and steal, but steal what? Like, Maharaj, beg, borrow, and steal. So even when even at the expense of making him highly uncomfortable, you go and, do things that are whatever, So.
This is referred to as parashruti. Was that correct?
Phalashruti. Phala. Fruit.
Shruti. Oh. So
Well, this is Gita Mahatmya, but yeah, Phalashruti, yeah.
could you please define shruti and then also smriti? Because I get these confused.
Shruti is that which is, multiple meanings in Sanskrit. Sanskrit has different meanings. In this case, Shruti refers to just glorification. It just refers to set of verses. Shruti. It means song. Shruti. Okay? But Shruti also, when you say Shruti in terms of when you generally refer to Shruti, you refer to the Vedas, the four Vedas. Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva. And all the Upanishads, which are included in those four Vedas. So that refers to Shruti. Smriti refers to that which is remembered. Puranas, Itihasas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, this is all Smriti. Also included are works of Acharyas, which have been handed down to the Parampara system, is also included as part of Smriti. So, that's Smriti. But here, when we say Shruti, it just refers to Stotram. Stotram. Actually, there are technical differences between these things I wanted to understand someday. There's technical differences between what is the Stuti, what is the Stotram, what is the Shruti, what is a Stava, Samhita, So there's different technical classifications, different kinds of poems in Sanskrit. Okay, anything else? Yes, Vamsi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, like in this text we read, it's mentioned that persons who disregard Gita some way or other, so they end up in hell or like this. So, but in preaching, book distribution, we
Sometimes
meet so many
happens.
people,
Yeah.
So how do we help them, because we show them and then whatever, they may not be having that conception till that moment, I don't know.
It is a risk that we take in preaching, because happens even with the holy name. No? We're doing Harinam. Suddenly someone gets angry and starts to curse at the devotees and offend them and things like that. Ultimately, Krishna allows himself to be subject to the desires of the devotees and the desires of our acharyas. Specifically, we are carrying the instruments of their mercy. So sometimes we've seen, for instance, people who are offending devotees constantly and trying to give them all kinds of problems. Somehow later they end up becoming devotees. All kinds of stories in this regard. Although technically they should have been offended, because they offended, they were offenders, they should have gone to hell, or they would have suffered, etc., etc. But this is where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy comes in. As in the case of Jagai and Madai, that happened in the very case of Jagai and Madai, that directly offending the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Directly offending Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you look at scripture, so many things are mentioned about somebody who does something like that. What would be their reaction? But what we see, the reaction that happened is that by Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, Jagai and Madai were delivered. They attained love of God. Even the most pious karmis couldn't get that, what Jagai and Madai got. So Lord Chaitanya's movement kind of flips everything and changes all this. This is in Shastra, it's there. But Lord Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's movement is a very special time in this day of Lord Brahma, where by the mercy is available in an extent that was never found before. Tapas Prabhu? No? Suresh?
The previous verse we looked at when it was talking about one who steals. Yeah, I think of one that worked out in their favor, then one against their favor. There's I don't know where it comes, the story. Someone like broke into a house and they were trying to steal stuff, and then I think they got rushed, and the only thing they could grab was like the Gita, right? Does this ring a bell to you?
I never heard of the story, very fascinating story. How is it that the only thing they found was the Gita of everything?
It was weird. I've heard it, I thought it was in a lecture maybe or something, and then they ran out with the Gita as the only thing they got, and then they became a devotee.
Wow.
In this the modern age or something. Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Maybe it was I don't know, maybe it was a personal story someone told me, but then the other one, I think we all heard it, right? The new Bhakta who stole the truck full of books. I think it was happening here at this ISKCON Atlanta back in the day, and then this new bhakti had the keys, and then they couldn't find the truck. They're like, "Where's the truck with all the books?" And then they realized the bhakta stole it. And then he was just hauling across America, and then he was really tired, but he didn't want to stop to get caught, and then he passed out and got in an accident, and then they captured him.
Oh.
So it was interesting.
That's interesting. There's also stories of, in India at least, of people trying to steal boxes of books and this and that, and then they would come back later and return it, saying they were not able to sell this here. Here's the books. I've heard this story also somewhere. I can't remember the exact specifics of it. But there's all kinds of wild Sankirtan stories, amazing Sankirtan. I mean, just see, what great benefit is being distributed. Those who are, to those who are receiving the Bhagavad Gita from the book distributors, it's just unimaginable. It's such an amazing book that we have. It's so glorious. Sometimes we ourselves kind of forget, because it's everywhere. It's in every temple. We have, every devotee almost has a couple of copies in his house. And we kind of forget its significance. Okay, anything from the Matajis? Yes.
You were making this point about we should bathe our intelligence in the Gita, and I was just wondering what that means, because even in the Bhagavad Gita,
Prabhupada writes that, yeah.
That we should
bathe our intellect.
fix our mind and our intelligence in Krishna, but I don't really understand it.
I mean, it just means meditating on the meaning. Reading is bathing one's intelligence in the Bhagavad Gita, just reading. And even more than reading, and then after reading, sometimes contemplating on that meaning that's been stated. This is called bathing of one's intellect in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, anything else? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Gita Ekadasi ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.